Hi everyone, this is Dr. Tracy and I'm going to talk about Chapter 5, Working with System Dynamics. So in the previous pages we talked a lot about the elements of a game, whether they be formal elements or dramatic elements, that games themselves are made up of several elements, and that's the inherent pieces that make the game what it is. But Chapter 5 takes all of that and talks about how those elements fit together to form systems. So systems are elements that interact to produce something else. So you can think of systems as, an air conditioning system, but also a game is system because it's made up of several elements that need to interact. So how can designers work with system properties to balance this dynamic nature? Is everything that systems is about. A system itself is a set of interacted elements that form an integrated whole with a common goal or purpose. Since a game has a common goal and a purpose and an objective, and it's a set of interacting elements that are formal and dramatic, it fits the description of what a system is. Systems exist in the natural world and in the man-made world, like the rainforest system and the your gas-powered engine has a system, and electrical system. They can be witnessed wherever you have several elements that need to interact in order to produce or do something else with a common goal. So systems can be very simple. They can also be complex. Taking a look at a social government system is pretty complex, but something like a mechanical stapler might not be too complex, something in between. Games are systems because of their interaction of each of the elements out of the previous chapters in order to reach a goal. So reaching a goal is not by itself inherently direct or overly easy in a decent game. It is structured by conflict and structured by challenge, by rules, by procedures, by boundaries. But in that, those formal elements, when set in motion, create this dynamic experience. And that makes this a system. The basic elements of any system, whether it be electrical system or, voting system, but the basic elements need to be there. There are objects. Those objects have properties. Those objects have behaviors. And those objects are related to other objects. So this is kind of a background as you get into developing and programming. You talk about objects and languages being object-oriented. That's really kind of a system way of speaking about each of the elements within a game. When you create these elements, you create them as objects and they become building blocks of systems. They're defined according to the properties, which is things that describe them, color, size, positioning, whether they're visible or not, and behaviors, which describes what they can do. Like a non-playing character can shoot you, die, run away, jump up and down, scream and yell. So properties then are the qualities or attributes that would define the way something looks, or where it's at, or where it shows up on the screen. All of those things are properties. Now, here's the thing. When you can adjust properties, though, you can change what it's doing. So if the properties of a pumpkin is that it's up in the left-hand corner of the screen, then that's got a certain characteristic of its position. Now, when you change that property and you move its position, you have redefined the properties. All of the systems of games is elements that have properties and methods that are redefined according to create a game that's playable for achieving a goal. Behaviors are also associated with each of the elements or objects. Behaviors are potential actions that an object might perform. Behaviors can even be something like stay still, don't do anything, or don't appear. But behaviors are all things that dictate what the possibility is for an object to do that's appearing on the screen or is a part of the game. Now, since we'll have several objects, We'll have objects that could be trees or plants, candlesticks, staircases, treasure maps, non-playing characters, the player, light switches, dungeons. Anything that you could have in a game is an object. Any of those objects have properties and behaviors. And then between those objects, we have relationships. So if there's no relationships between all the objects, then we don't have a system. But we've already determined that a video game is a system. So we have to understand the nature of the objects between those and the relationships. Like, for example, your player's character might be holding a weapon. The weapon is an object. It has certain properties and it has certain behaviors. Your player's character is an object. It has certain properties like the color shirt it's wearing and its position on the screen. And certain behaviors like run, jump, skip, hop, sit down, and shoot. But then there's a relationship between those two objects. That when they're connected, the player can control the gun in order to have a relationship with the third object, the bullet. The different relationships exist for fixed periods or changing. The relationship between the cards in a card deck are fixed relationships because they don't change. A king of diamonds is higher than a queen of diamonds. But there could be relationships that may change throughout the game for various reasons. System dynamics means that all of these elements don't work by themselves. And we can tell if something is an important part of a system by removing it from the system and seeing if the system still works. The system is greater than the sum of its parts. That's a quote that comes directly from the book. Because what it means is the more elements that we have to incorporate, that we establish as objects with relationships, then we're going to have something that is far greater than each one working in isolation. So take a look at system dynamics, read chapter 5. There is some additional information at the end of chapter 5 about economies, which is related to systems. Read that, but this is what the video will go over now. And let me know if you have any questions or if there's anything I can do to help. Bye, guys.